My wedding day, in front of everyone, my husband slapped me. All because I didn't give up my seat for his mother. He then demanded that I apologize to her or leave the wedding. Without hesitation, I walked out, leaving everything behind. Now, he's frantically calling me, begging for forgiveness. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, the day I had dreamed about for years, my wedding day in Chicago. It was meant to be a celebration of love and joy, surrounded by family and friends. Instead, it turned into a nightmare that shattered everything I believed in. The ceremony was beautiful. The music played softly, the flowers were arranged perfectly, and the guests were all smiles. I looked around the room, feeling a rush of excitement and anticipation. Peter and I had been planning this day for months, and I couldn't wait to begin our life together. But as the evening progressed, things took a turn for the worse. It started when Peter's mother, Mrs. Johnson, approached me with a stern look on her face. She was in her late 50s, with an air of authority that often overshadowed everyone around her. "Scarlett," she said, her voice tripping with disdain. "I need to speak with you." I followed her to a quieter corner of the venue, hoping it was just a minor concern, but Mrs. Johnson's face was flushed with anger. "You've been incredibly disrespectful today," she declared, her eyes narrowing. "You've embarrassed me in front of all these people." I was taken aback. I had been nothing but polite and respectful. "What are you talking about?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She didn't give me a chance to explain. "Don't act innocent," she snapped. "You think you can come into this family and behave however you like? You're a disgrace." Peter, who had been mingling with the guests, came over at that moment. He looked from his mother to me, his expression unreadable. "What's going on here?" he asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. "Scarlett has been disrespectful," Mrs. Johnson said, her voice rising. "She's ruined the day for everyone." Before I could defend myself, Peter's face twisted with anger. "Is this true?" he demanded, his gaze piercing. "Have you been causing trouble?" "No," I said, feeling the sting of his accusation. "I haven't done anything wrong. I was just trying to enjoy our wedding." But Peter's eyes hardened. "You've made a fool of yourself and my mother," he said, his voice loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "This is unacceptable." The word stung, but nothing prepared me for what happened next. In a shocking move, Peter raised his hand and slapped me across the face. The sound of the slap echoed through the room, and I felt a wave of humiliation wash over me. My face burned, not just from the physical pain, but from the sheer embarrassment of being hit in front of everyone. The room fell silent. Guests exchanged uneasy glances, but no one intervened. Peter's mother watched with a satisfied smirk, as if she had won some victory. "You're a fat woman who's dishonored my mother," Peter shouted, his voice filled with venom. "I can't believe I married someone like you." I stood there stunned, tears welling up in my eyes. The crowd was a blur of shocked faces. I wanted to run, to hide from the world, but instead I found myself standing frozen, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Peter's behavior wasn't just shocking, it was a devastating blow. In front of all those people, I felt my dignity slip away. As the guests slowly resumed their conversations, I felt the weight of their judgment on me. The laughter and music seemed to mock my misery. When I finally managed to compose myself, I knew I couldn't stay there any longer. I excused myself from the reception and found a quiet place in the back of the venue, away from prying eyes. The tears flowed freely now as I tried to process the events of the evening. I'd always imagined this day as a fairy tale, a dream come true. Instead, it had turned into a cruel reminder of the harsh reality I was facing. My marriage, which I had hoped would bring me happiness and security, had revealed itself as a sham. Peter's and his mother's behavior was more than just a fleeting moment of anger. It was a glimpse into a toxic and abusive dynamic I had not fully understood before. The humiliation of the evening was a harsh wake-up call. I knew I couldn't allow this to be the end of my story. As I looked at my reflection in the dim light, I made a silent vow to myself. I would not remain a victim of their cruelty. I would seek justice and expose the truth, no matter how difficult the journey ahead might be. The wedding, once a symbol of new beginnings, had become a turning point in my life. The pain and betrayal I felt were profound, but they also ignited a fire within me. I knew that the road to reclaiming my life and seeking justice would be long and arduous, but I was determined to face it head-on. This was just the beginning of my fight. In the weeks following the disastrous wedding, I felt like I was living in a fog. The pain of Peter's public humiliation was still fresh. But what stung even more was the realization that my marriage had been a facade. Despite the turmoil, I knew I couldn't let Peter and Mrs. Johnson's cruelty define my life. I needed to take control and find a way to fight back. The first step in my plan was to gather evidence. I knew that exposing Peter and his mother would require more than just my word. I needed proof of the emotional and financial abuse I had endured. That's when I decided to hire Detective Robert Hayes, a private investigator known for his discretion and effectiveness. I reached out to him and after a brief consultation, he agreed to take on my case. Detective Hayes was in his mid-40s, with a calm demeanor and a sharp mind. He listened intently as I recounted the events of the wedding and described the pattern of abuse I had experienced. "I understand how difficult this must be for you," he said, "but if you're willing to work with me, we can get to the bottom of this." I nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope. "I'll do whatever it takes," I said. "I just want the truth to come out." With Detective Hayes on board, I started recording my conversations with Peter and Mrs. Johnson. It was uncomfortable and stressful, but I knew it was necessary. I hid a small recorder in my purse, making sure to capture every conversation I had with them. It wasn't long before I realized how manipulative and abusive they truly were. Now comment update to tag you on part 2.